ready? It's the Roundtable with me, Robert Bannon. Hey, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Roundtable. I'm so excited to talk to artists about art, and I'm really excited to talk to our next guest because Noah we've talked a lot with a lot of different performers about the transition from theater to our screens, right? And he's in that transition right now, and I'm so excited. He's about to blow up, and we're going to catch him before he won't return our emails. That's what's going to happen right now. Noah J. Ricketts is here. We've seen him in everything from Frozen all the way on down to a whole bunch of other musicals I can't wait to talk to him about. Ladies and gentlemen, Noah J. Ricketts. Well, that's the truth. That's what's going to happen over the next year. You just watch.
I love it. That is such a good intro. I think that's the best one I've ever gotten. So thank you so much.
Well, welcome to the show. I'm very excited to talk to you because I did a little digging. You're from Kentucky.
I am from Kentucky. I am.
Which is not like I would think. This may be very naive. I'm from Jersey, so us East Coast snobs may not know about life in Kentucky, but right. I wouldn't think it's the world of where art is kind of born.
I think I found the one small subset of Kentucky. I'm from Louisville, Kentucky, or Louisville, as the people say, where the Derby happens. And oddly enough, there's like a really kind of thriving art scene there. And so when I was growing up, I just assumed that everyone went to musical theater summer camp, and everyone went to this great regional theater to see Dracula every year. I didn't realize. So I actually found I was born in the one little small section that really thrived with the arts.
Well, that's beautiful. When we had Antoine Hopper on the show, he was talking about being from Middle America and having a beautiful experience with art. And I think we need to realize art is throughout this country. It's not just in LA and New York City.
Yeah, it really is. And people are doing the thing. And so, I mean, we'll probably get into this, the start of it all, right? Is that the first question?
Of course it is. A broken wrist?
It's true. So the start of this whole journey for me, coming out of Kentucky was totally on accident. I mean, I was as a boy growing up in Kentucky, I was shoved into every single sport, every one of them: basketball, football, baseball. And I was terrible at all of them. I was bad. I will admit it. And yeah, right, it happens. And so the one sport that I was okay at was soccer, because I could run. I could kick, I could do that. And as long as I could do that, I could go to play soccer every year. And so I was on a competitive team and blah, blah. And so every summer I would do this competitive soccer and sports camp thing. And it was at the YMCA. And I remember I'd do push-ups in the morning, you'd run all day. It was all that. And so one summer, right before I was going to go, my friend down the street, Ashley, brought over a skateboard, and she was like, "You have to try this. You have to do this thing." So she gets on and she goes down and she's kick flips and all that stuff. And I was like, oh my God, amazing. Obviously I can do the same thing. So I get on the skateboard, and not only do I get on, Robert, I decide to go straight down my driveway, as my first go. As soon as I got on, I think I flew off, because next thing, broken arm, head scratched, arms ripped up, everything. And I'm, rushed off to the emergency, all the things. And so, my dream of going to sports camp and doing those push-ups and doing that soccer game, it was a quick no. So my mom's looking at me and she's like, "Well, you've got to do something this summer, because I got to go to work. We have things planned." And so she calls around, and the one place that will take me is the theater, right?
Divine intervention.
Exactly.
By the broken wrist.
Right. So I end up going to this summer camp in my hometown called Broadway Boot Camp, which is a musical theater summer camp that lasts all summer long. And, you start with you're putting on a show, you learn the music, you've got class during the day. And I entered this space, and you know how it is with theater kids. They start when they're young. And I did start pretty young, but people were dancing and stretching, and they handed me this paper with black dots on it. And I'm like, what is this? They're like, it's called sheet music, hon. And I'm like suddenly in this new world that I had never encountered before. And that was a major turning point in my life, because I was like, oh my God, this exists and I'm obsessed with it. And by the end of that summer, I was singing Conjunction Junction, What's Your Function with the cast on my arm. And the rest is history. Like, you couldn't tell me anything else after that.
Schoolhouse Rock was your big number.
Schoolhouse Rock was my debut into the theater.
That's why you're my people already. I can tell. So you never sang, like you were. It wasn't like you had that bug to be like, I'm going to be an actor. I'm a singer. You weren't, singing Streisand in a mirror before this moment.
No, I did sing, and it's only because my sister forced me to sing. She's a huge Mariah Carey fan, so she would make me sing Mariah Carey along with the stereo or whatever, and that's my only singing. Was me trying to go and try to do Mariah's.
All the whistle tones.
All the whistle tones.
Whistle tones.
That's it. I'm still trying, so that's it.
At least you can try. I'm just like, no, not happening here. So that was your start. And then how did that transition, and what was your family's reaction to the shift? Was it a shift? Was it like, I don't want to do the soccer world anymore? Or did you try to merge both?
Yeah. So after that summer, I got taken in by this mentor named Jan. So who became my voice teacher and kind of like helped me into this era of theater. And I then became being like, oh, I'm on YouTube until 4 a.m. Like, I'm watching the Tony performances, I'm doing the thing. And at that point, my family kind of was like, oh, I guess he's really kind of into this. And so I dove into singing, I dove into dancing, I dove into acting, and I dove into piano. So all separately, I didn't realize that musical theater was a thing that I could pursue, or theater in general, until I became about 15, 16. And people said, oh, you got to pick a career, And I had been doing all of these art forms separately until I decided to choose a career. And because I had studied them separately, I was like, well, this one includes, right? So I might as well do that one. And yeah, that's what happened. So it was a quick kind of like obsession for me. Once I decided to go for it, that's when things really kind of took off, and I studied it day in and day out, privately, with groups, all of that.
And then that decision that you were going to take this seriously as a career, what was the next transition for you? Was it school? Was it college? What was it work? What happened? What was the decision you made?
I think once I started doing shows in my community, and then I started reaching the high school era of things, there was a performing arts high school in my hometown, and you had to like pick a major to pursue, and you could also pick a minor. And so I decided, for whatever reason, because I have been studying voice so actively, to be a vocal major and a musical theater minor. And I studied at that high school for 3 years, until I felt like I had kind of gotten all that I could get from it. And, I think inevitably when you're in that high school setting, it's like some people really want to pursue this and some people don't really want to pursue this, but we're all under the same umbrella. And so I had run into a friend who was at a different school, and she was at a school called Interlochen. And we met in a summer program, a performing arts summer program. And she said, I go to this crazy school. It's in the middle of the woods. It's a boarding school and also an international school. And people from all over the world come to study and pursue their art. Would you ever want to do that? I'm like, yeah, I want to do that. And I felt like at that time I had outgrown my high school experience and was kind of striving for something more. So I said to my mom, I want to go audition for this school in the woods. They have a theater program that's thriving. Can we drive 13 hours to Michigan and do it? And she said yes, and we did. And so sure enough, I auditioned for the theater program at Interlochen Arts Academy, this hippie school in the woods. Hey, Interlochen. And I got in and started pursuing my theater major there. So I actually ended up going to 2 performing arts schools over my high school career. And that was amazing. It was like I was truly in the woods in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by artists of all shapes and sizes and of different majors. It was the most incredible experience and truly turned me into the artist I am today. And it was more like a college setting than anything. And from there, they really prepped us for college, and they decided to, we got our auditions together and where are you going to go? And I remember at the end of senior year, or in the middle of senior year, we traveled up to Chicago to audition for all of the major schools like Juilliard and Carnegie Mellon and CCM and Michigan. And it was there that, I was like, oh crap, we're really doing this. We're really getting this degree in theater. So I told myself, if I didn't get into the top schools, I was like, not going to pursue this thing. I was like, you got to be the best and try and strive for the best when it goes to this. And so I was very fortunate to get into a couple of schools, and I decided to go to CCM, the University of Cincinnati, to get my BFA in musical theater. And so sure enough, I was packing my bags in Interlochen, Michigan, and starting my next journey, which was a BFA at CCM.
And that's what you ended up doing. And did that foundation really help you prepare for what was to come after?
Yeah. And, I toured a lot of schools. So I got into the schools and I toured a lot of schools. And the reason I picked CCM was because it was really similar to the training I had finished. Interlochen was pretty old school, strict. If you're not 15 minutes early, you're late. Know your lines, and I knew that for me, I kind of thrived in that environment, and I took my artistry very seriously. And so, yeah, I call CCM the true Broadway boot camp because, you wake up at 6 a.m. to study your lines and learn your song and do your 32 bar cut. And then you're right into dance class at 8 a.m. and you don't end your day till 11 p.m. And then you turn around and do it again. So in that way, 4 years of Broadway boot camp really kind of over prepared me to come out into the world and start auditioning and hitting the ground running, which was so exciting. So, go ahead.
No, wait. So you left that experience 8 a.m., 11 p.m. Being prepared, dancing, singing, acting, all of that.
Yeah.
What happens for you when you graduate school? Do you move to New York? Do you just stay? Do you start locally auditioning? What was this big transitional moment as now a college graduated artist?
Right. I know, right? So as senior year approached, I was just like, I am so sick of talking about doing it. I just want to do it. And so I remember renting a U-Haul truck for the day I finished classes. And I literally rented it that morning, parked it outside my apartment. I said, hey, thank you so much. I skipped my own college graduation to pack up the U-Haul and drive myself to New York because I was like, I'm so sick of studying this thing. I just want to pursue it. You know what I mean? You talk about it so much. And so sure enough, I drive with my friends all the way to New York City, and we're there and we move into an apartment and we're trying to figure things out. And we start that process of showcasing ourselves in New York and presenting ourselves to all of the industry. And so within 2 weeks, we're at Showcase, and Showcase went well. I, did the agent shopping, got my agent, and I was already sent out. And so initially, my first Broadway audition was for Cinderella on Broadway. And I remember being like, yes, like I want this, I'm going to get this. And I was suddenly in the room with some of those people that I had seen on YouTube, like that dancing at the Tony Awards and singing and playing these parts. And it was such an exciting moment. And I got down to like the final for like some ensemble part. And I remember wanting it, and it was down to like 4 guys. And we did this last round, and I walk out and I'm on the street, my cell phone rings, and my agent calls and he's like, you didn't get it. And I was like, no, like heartbroken. And within 30 seconds, he's like, I have another audition for you. It's tomorrow at 10 a.m. It's for this show called Beautiful, the Carole King musical. I'm sending you 4 songs to learn overnight. You be there tomorrow. Bye. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I go home, I get this email, it's full of music. I kind of half know the songs. I shoved them all in my head. And that crazy training that I had over so many years kind of came together, right? And the next day I sleep and come to, and I'm there in the audition room singing for Beautiful, the Carole King musical.
Spoiler alert, he books beautiful. He looks beautiful. There's wait, you know what? We're done. This interview's over. Second audition, books this show. Goodbye. No, I'm kidding. That's beautiful. What a wonderful story. That is amazing. That's preparation. That's what you're supposed knowing, being in the light and line of what you're supposed to do in your life and know that, and hard ass work.
Yeah, yeah, it was. So like, it was a crazy audition. I sang a million songs. I did the dance call. I went to a costume fitting, and they still wouldn't tell me I booked the show. And then, on a Sunday night, they call me at like 11. They're like, "See you on Tuesday, 10 a.m. at the Stephen Sondheim Theater." And I'm like, "What?" So I moved to New York within a couple of weeks. I had no idea how to access or work the subway, and and then sure enough, I'm in rehearsal for my Broadway show, and it happened that fast, and it was so crazy. And it was like years of just wanting and striving and hoping, and it happened in an instant. And I made my Broadway debut singing Up on the Roof, and in a silk suit and sweat. It was amazing. It was amazing.
It's a fun show, and what a amazing story. And
Yeah.
then from there you get to do theater all over. I mean, before your next big Broadway juggernaut of a show, you get to do theater all over. From and you've done Hello Dolly and La Cage and Legally Blonde and Tarzan, and I don't know, a million people at the Muni to probably 20 people and somewhere else, and everything in between, to make it and sustain your life as an artist, as a job.
Yeah.
How did the next big Broadway show process happen, and how much of a process was it to get cast in Frozen?
Yeah. So, at a certain point, I blink and I look up. Oh, there I am. um, 3 years has gone by with Beautiful, and I'm like, oh my God. And I was like, I love the show, I love my life, but I want to pursue something more, and I want to tell more stories in an interesting way. And so I call that same agent and I say, I'm thinking about coming back to, like, I'd been on tour at this point, so I had toured with Beautiful as well. And I was like, I'm ready to come back to New York and start again. And he said, there's this audition for this thing called Frozen. Do you watch animated things? I'm like, no, I don't. And he's like, well, watch the movie. You got an audition tomorrow at 10 a.m. So I get sent all of these sides, and they're for Kristoff, and they have me talking to this reindeer and snowman. And I'm like, how the hell am I gonna do this? Like, I have all of these audition scenes with an invisible reindeer and a snowman, and I'm like, all right, here we go. Goes back to that weird theater school, pull up and commit. And so I'm in this room, I'm auditioning for Frozen, I'm pretending I'm petting this reindeer, and I'm singing my heart out, hoping for the best. And the funny thing is, like, it goes well. And so the audition process for Frozen was extensive. Like, I mean, probably one of the most extensive ones I've been through in my life. And it felt more like a rehearsal process than an audition process, because at a certain point, after a couple of rounds, we started being invited into the room, and we auditioned at the oh gosh, is it called 890 Broadway? The old rehearsal space. So it felt like you were like in the chorus line era, like the old wooden floors and all that. And we would come in at 10 a.m. and we would start workshopping material, songs and scenes and dancing and choreography from 10 a.m. to like 6 p.m. every day. So once we've like passed a couple of weeks of initial auditions, we're in like the final stages. And it felt like you were in a rehearsal hall, because you would start connecting with people and experimenting and playing the scenes with them all day long. And so I remember, like, the final day, like the seventh day, Oh, before I get to that, I should say, as we went along, you saw people trickle out, like, like kind of like RuPaul's Drag Race or like American Next Top Model. Is like, oh, where'd they go? Where did so and so go? Yeah. And so the final day was like this big, big, big day, and we had been rehearsing between two studios, one in Midtown and one downtown. And I remember being like, okay, final day, like let's do it. And I go to pack up my audition bag and I'm like, oh crap, where are my shoes? Like my dance shoes that I have been rehearsing in. We're auditioning at the downtown space and my shoes are at the Midtown space, like the Telsey office. And I call my agent in a tizzy and I'm like, oh my God, today's the final day. We have an hour to the thing. I don't have my shoes. My things are downtown. How do I get, I mean, uptown, how do I get there and make it to on time? He calls somebody that calls somebody, and they eventually call the Telsey office, and Bernie Telsey grabs my dance shoes, stuffs them in a bag, comes downtown, throws them at me. I grab my shoes, and I'm late at this point for this final round. And I run into the elevator. And who am I in the elevator with? Director, choreographer, casting, music team. And we're in this old New York elevator pre-COVID. So like there's no social distance, honey. We're like 12 of us packed in this teeny elevator. And so I'm like already kind of nervous. And I just start doing what I normally start doing, which is cracking jokes. And I'm like, let me just lighten the mood. And it was a terrifying ride, but a hilarious ride from like, bottom floor to like 8th floor. And it actually relieved a lot of tension because I was like, well, I just survived the most awkward part of this day, which is being shoved in an elevator with all the people that are going to make the decisions about my future. And sure enough, we go into the first round of auditions and I'm like free as a bird. I'm like, hey, y'all, good to see you again. And that audition led to a full day of audition. And sure enough, after a full day of auditioning 10 to 6 p.m., I got a call that was like, you're going to be in Frozen, the musical on Broadway, and your first original Broadway cast. And I was like, amazing.
And what a fun show. And what a beautiful cast that show has.
Ooh.
They're all such beautiful, wonderful people.
Yeah.
And you end up getting to talk to that moose, elk, weird, and snowman. And
Yeah, so much when they're there in person.
Yes, right. But now they're there. Now you can see them.
Right.
And then from there, I'd be remiss to not bring up To My Girls. It's that's quite a cast of people as well. And that's like acting. Like it's funny to, without the music, without the tap dancing and the whole thing.
Yeah.
And which is interesting, which leads us to what you've been working on.
Yeah.
From not the typical on stage 8 shows a week dancing and singing. Congratulations on Fellow Travelers and what's about to happen.
Oh my God.
What a journey. What a fun, exciting ride.
What a journey. So yeah, how do we get there? So Frozen was amazing. Like, I rode the wave as Kristoff and made a lot of kids happy and made a lot of young Black boys happy. It was the Shining Black Prince, which was amazing. And in the pandemic, we closed. And, that was a really big time, I think, for everyone. And it was a very big time for me, rethinking like artistry and where I land in the world and what I wanted to do. And so a big thing for me was, as people were rioting out in the streets and, promoting their activism and things, I was like, okay, what does that look like for me? Like, what does that look like for me as an artist? And what do I want to do moving forward with my artistry that makes the world a better place and leaves this business better than I found it? And I decided for myself to start telling important stories, like to really kind of put my money where my mouth is and tell stories that mean something, that say something for marginalized people, for people of all shapes and sizes and colors. And so doing that work was super important because as we got out of the pandemic and back into the theater, I really had to start being selective about what it was I wanted to take. And so when To My Girls came along, I remember reading the script being like, oh my God, never have I ever seen a play about a group of gay friends that isn't centered around AIDS and death and dying, and that is actually for my generation. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. Not only was it funny and it was heartfelt, and also really hit on some major important topics, including race, Asian race, Black race, white race, every all of that, and identity. And it was just such a special little moment in time. And a lot of people refer to it as like the modern day Boys in the Band, which is super exciting. And so when that opportunity came along, I was like, absolutely, yes, I want to do this. This is such an important story, this little kind of niche story that lives in time. And it's been so special to like see that happen. And then like the release of the Fire Island movie. And I have another movie coming out. I don't know if you know this, but I have a movie coming out called Summoning Sylvia. And it's also kind of like about a group of gay friends that you go to this upstate house, and it's like a horror comedy. And, you know, it's nice to explore stories about these marginalized communities, right?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
that's part of my conversation with you about transitioning from theater to film and to television is so many people that you see on stages are now have their own project like Fire Island, or
Yes.
like seeing Partner Track with Bradley, or seeing like, you know, like seeing things like that, like to see people of different colors, races, ethnicities, sexualities in leading roles, telling more stories than just, as you said, the same kind of stereotypical stories. It's a full world, a full envisioned character and storyline is
Yeah.
so important.
Yeah. And I think, you know, that was a big one for me. You know, as I told you before, I kind of studied all the art forms separately.
Mhm.
And what I love just straight acting. I love the theater. It's something that I've, you know, pursued for the amount of my life, for majority of my life. And so I, I kind of was feeling a riff when it came to musical theater, because if you look at a lot of the storytelling, it's dated, if I can be honest with you. And you know, I'd studied so much of my craft was like studying how to play opposite a girl and be the prince and romantic lead and to do the thing. And I was like, I'm tired of this. Like I want to be myself. I want to explore other stories. I want to tell other stories, right? And I felt like in the musical theater space, there wasn't the space for it, or at least the people weren't telling the stories, you know? And the funny thing is, the musicals do exist. I've been a part of a lot of developmental projects that are like super, super cool and super exciting and so different. And people are just afraid to take the risk, right? They're afraid.
I was going to ask you because I had seen you talk about in the past, and I know for a fact that you have workshopped a lot of shows. That's part of the theater world in New York City. And
Yes.
I know a lot of friends of mine who have written really beautiful shows that
Yeah.
have really important themes and messages in them. And
Yeah.
to get no shade to anybody, but you know, when theaters are reserved for, you know, movie reboots and things like that that then don't allow new voices and original work to be told is very discouraging.
It is. And you know, like I think there's space for all of it. You know, I think there's space for all of it. And it's so funny because it's amazing how like the economy, it really shapes the theater world, which we were hoping it never would, right? But
Right.
people are so scared to take risk. But if you look at historically theater, like the era of musical theater that got us all inspired to do it are all of these original musicals, right? That told these
Mhm.
exciting stories with music no one ever heard. And even now you can look back to the Wickeds, which was supposed to be a horrible flop, right?
Yep.
Hamilton projected to be a flop that no one knew about. The Lion King was a movie that they turned on its head and really kind of invented in a new way that was a critical mass success. But I think we've gotten to this era where people are afraid to take risk, and it's really sad. And I hope that the world knows too. It's hard on performers to do that too. You know, we got into this to be creative and artistic, and that kind of led me more towards with the television route and the film route, because you know, it's a problematic world just as the theater, but they are telling exciting stories that I have yet to experience when it comes to musical theater or a lot of the plays that even happen on Broadway as well. So you see the transition, right? Not just me, but a lot of other people. Yeah. And I think that's why I think coming out of the pandemic, I really wanted to give voice to myself and to other people and be the person I never got to see on the screen. So yeah.
Well, no, you've done that. I mean, you really have kind of done that from the start. Even in your theater days, like you've shown a lot of um, ability for a whole audience to see something that's not represented. You know, if it's to be a Disney prince in a show and be a person of color is such a powerful thing. And Frozen did that with, you know, you and Aisha and July. All of the people that got to see that is so important. Now to see that on television and to continue this conversation, I think
Yeah.
is so powerful and so important. And it's been wonderful to see so many people transition to TV and film because it's an accessible medium. It's not $200 a person to go bring somebody to the theater. While that's all good and fine, everyone can see a piece of this and see this whole entire world. So when you come up with something like Fellow Travelers, why was this something that you wanted to be a part of? And how is the transition like? What is it like now to go back to those self-taping camera kind of days and to get back on set?
Oh, well, I should say this. Okay. So the transition was not terrible for me. Like, all of the auditions left the room and we started doing self tapes because when I did Broadway shows for like from start to finish, like 7 years, like I was on an 8-show-a-week schedule forever. And so the only way that I could ever do initial auditions for anything new was to put myself on tape. So very quickly, even pre-pandemic, I got very used to like, okay, here we go. Here's my light. Here's my thing. Here's my thing. And that was kind of unexpected good practice. And when after To My Girls happened, I've auditions for movies and TV and things like that. And so when Fellow Travelers came into my orbit, I read the scene I was auditioning for the part I'm playing now, Frankie. And I remember being like, just like holding my heart and being like, oh my God, how freaking sweet. Because it's like, Frankie is this kind of out and proud person living in this very messed up world, in the 1950s. And he's the one person in his circle that dares to be out and proud as a drag performer and kind of as a non-binary person in the world as well. And so when I got the scene, I remember the first scene that I read was this kind of emotional scene where he talks to his lover, who is, spoiler alert, Jelani Aladdin. And, it's like a turbulent scene where he thinks it's going to go one way and it ends up going another way. And so I remember reading that being like, oh my God, this character has so much depth and emotion. And I really was so excited to explore and show on TV the other side of the persona of a person in drag, right? Give voice to a person in drag that this is not a clown. This is not just a performer. This person has feelings and emotion and wants to be loved and held and cared for just as much as we all do. And so that was a really exciting prospect for me. I was like, I really want to literally get into these high heels and explore that side of things and give voice to these people, right?
Yeah, a well-rounded. You get to perform as a well-rounded, not the caricature of what a lot of the times it's like. Well, you have it's like the Christoph love affair. Then it's you guys. It's it's Linus Roach and you, and then also, I mean, you talk about a group of people,
Right?
Matt, Jonathan and Allison Williams, and you guys are quite the cast. You are quite the talented, beautiful cast.
Yeah, I mean, like it's quite the cast, and I've been, I'm such a student of life sometimes. So like even when I'm not recording my scenes, I'm just like on the side, so I'm watching the monitor. I'm like, oh my God, how exciting is this? And I have been watching the work of all of these people, and let me just tell you, it's just beyond. It's just beyond. Like the work stands for them. Like Allison, incredible. Matt, incredible. Jonathan, incredible. Jelani, incredible. Linus, it's amazing. And one fun thing I'll tell you, we do these read-throughs on Zoom of the episodes before we start to film them, just so we can get a vibe of what's going on. And even on Zoom, I'm like, it's like watching the show. It's like it's so full of life and spirit and heart and emotion. It's going to be very special.
I can't wait. I can't wait, Showtime. I'm ready for you guys to all get this out into the world. And Noah, this is only the beginning. I mean, God, wait, there's a lot more stories to tell and a lot more life to show. Uh,
Yeah.
and I'm here for it. I'm ready for all of the amazing work that you're going to do. Come on, let's.
Oh my God, you said it first. I love it. Yeah.
If people want to follow you, they can follow. I know you put it there, but they could also follow. You can follow at Noah J. RKTS Ricketts, and there's all different. I told you the dogs were coming.
I love
They
it.
must have heard it. They heard it. They're taking out their phones and following you right now. And and if we want to stay in touch and see more, he does all sorts of stuff and gives all sorts of. Follow him online and get all the details.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, Noah, this story is so inspiring. Like that life-changing moment really put you on a trajectory, and now you get to change lives by your art, and that's so beautiful.
Thank you so much. And thank you for reminding me of that. I mean, you're in it and you forget, right? So thank you so much.
No, it's exciting. And congrats and continued success. We're here rooting for you. We're cheering for you. Let's go.
I can't wait to be back. I will be back. So I'm excited. I look
How
forward
great.
to that.
How great is he? What a light, what a sweet personality, what a joy. Noah J. Ricketts is going to make a lot of big things happen. So make sure you're on the lookout for Fellow Travelers when it comes out. And wherever he is, whatever stage and screen he's at, make sure you follow him and join. We promote art. We like art. We like to support artists. So everybody support artists today. Original, beautiful, new art. Find a TV show, find a movie, find a theater, find a play, find a community theater. It doesn't have to be a $150 Broadway theater. It doesn't have to be a big fancy $100 million movie. What it needs to be is just somebody sharing their art and their heart. And that's what this show's all about. My name is Robert Bannon. If you want more information about me, go to robertbannon.com. You can follow us every single Thursday with a live show called The Roundtable. And then there's also The Roundtable Talks, which is a sister show talking about artists with art. I hope to join you soon. Be well. Bye, everybody.